easy one. That was one which has had impact through this series, had a ban, had a pick. So I'm assuming that one's going to get locked in for Strive. And that is kind of a little bit easier to, again, play towards in those later game team fights. But of course, we're at them in that first game, where they didn't get a single kill, played towards that, didn't exactly work out for them. In fact, they locked in exactly these two champions against the Ryze, and it didn't work out for them. That Varus, not sure I want to see it.
No, Varus is 0-2 in this series so far.
Alright,
and
here we go again.
Here we go, run it back. So what's coming up next? Zeri with what, Lulu?
Is that Zeri Lulu is something I think that makes sense because I think LPC and JinJiao showed that they could survive the lane with that, because you saw the Lulu start shield level 1, walk up to the Varus camera and say, alright, I'll just tank the skill shot, and we can kind of like play from parity at that point, as opposed to kind of like trade damage for damage, which Varus and Karma do so well at in the early game. There's going to be that Zeri again. Zeri, of course, has been the real threat in late game fights. That's why it has been often about, like, say, someone Strive on that Renekton trying to shut them down, because that Zeri has been very potent in these longer games where it has kind of devolved into A-ramming.
And LPC had a pretty good game.
Oh,
of it as
no!
well.
Not this
the
thing,
Donga,
it got
okay.
through!
Well,
not again!
I guess we're going to see round 2, yeah.
We couldn't escape it. Well, it's not going to be the Karma, it's going to be that Heimerdinger, but this was something which, in, again, that first game, which I believe this is actually the first 3 picks from them too. We're following a very similar path to that first game. LGD had themselves the Cassante in that game though, so of course it won't be a perfectly same draft, although it will be fairly similar. This bot lane still managed to push in, still managed to have a lot of presence in that bot side, even though the Varus is meant to be very dominant in that laning phase, struggled to deal with what that Heimerdinger could do on that bot side of the map.
But at least on the other side, we do have a strength here for RA. I know you're not happy with the Varus, but I'm pretty happy with Cube getting the Jax once again in the top side, as we do have a Skarner ban to grace the second ban phase, considering that LGD are following a similar path.
Only investor 3s, man. You get through to that third game, like, nope, not again, not happening. Give yourself some data on the day. And we're starting to see, as opposed to something a bit more, damaging, interactive, we're seeing the tank junglers, which have defined the series, being removed. Both of these teams struggled with their opposing numbers tank champions, which they've now banned in that second round, and they decide, alright, let's make sure that they're not going to have that same ability for these two junglers kind of sparring with each other to have that very hard to remove initiator.
So I wonder where you go from there, because we saw Leyan with the Viego in game number 1 that really did nothing. Maybe LGD happy to leave it open and get rid of one of the big priority junglers in the meta. The Wukong taken out. It's a quadruple jungle ban in the second phase. And you can see that RA aren't even interested in getting a priority jungle here, Nymeara. Instead, they want the engage that they had before on Southwind. Maybe I spoke too soon, because, yep, they definitely needed that.
That's like the last Premier engaged jungler, I suppose, out of the ones that we saw more of last year. Of course, that bit being hovered also does a fair amount of engaging, and
Meteor loves
would
this.
fill in some of the gaps of what LGD need to get. Most of the time when you're looking for engage nowadays, you are looking for jungle and from support. It's less so from top lane as of previous metas. It will be the Zac slingshotting into RA's comp, and with 2 immobile carries, the Syndra and the Varus, that's a good pick to have into them.
Man, the Fiora as well, you could say something similar here in the game. Going up against the Jax, I mean, Xiaoxu has had pretty decent laning, despite last game getting bullied out quite a bit by Leyan. So we'll see what he can do with the Fiora this time around as we get a fun topside matchup. And we do get Flubber returning for Meteor. Now, if you watched him on BLG 3 splits ago, you'll remember that he was spamming this champion. It was one of his favorites at the time. So he's returning to a meta where I guess things are suiting him quite nicely. And Nymeara, another question for you yet again. This composition from LGD, where do we go? What angle do you play?
I think what you're looking to do is have very opportunistic picks onto Strive and onto Sssum. Maybe even Southwind as well, because the bottom 3 picks from Raratum, they don't have a huge amount of ability. They can get caught out by Zeri jumping over a wall, Zac jumping even further over a wall, and Ryze teleporting into the fray. I think if they're caught out of position, much like in that first game with the threat of the Skarner,
with the debut of Zac in the LPL, can get something done. You talked about the aggression here as RA start with a bot side invade. I'll walk me through RA a little bit again. You mentioned words like range, but we also have the Jax spilt into this one a bit as well.
Yeah, we talked about the LGD side of things in terms of trying to pick out these pieces out of position from Rare Adam, but if they manage to hold their position, manage to land a Scatter the Weak, land a Chains of Corruption, which of course has been a little inaccurate in this series so far, because they're playing at such range, then you can start looking for these one-shot combos. Even someone like that Zac, who is fairly tanky as far as things goes, if they do get caught out of position, you're starting to look again for that huge unleashed power and the empowered Q from the Varus to take down the first target who has tried to dive too deeply, and then reset the fight after that point.
And how nice is it, you know, having Syndra Vi as a mid 2v2 there, Nymeara, like a strong, I guess, setup of gank, especially at the level 3 point, when we're going to be looking at Haichao to see how he survives, but maybe Meteor as well, for the counterpunch that he was so good at in the first game.
So, this 2v2 went in the direction of the Heimerdinger in the first game of the series, but in this one, looks like Rare Adam feeling like they can contest Prio a little bit easier at the level 1. They struggled to do that in their first game, but that missed Mantra Cube, that changes things. You can't afford to miss those in these kind of matchups.
Well, JinJiao just looking for his poke out. You're going to be setting up turrets at melee range. Southwind moved down to half HP, and I mean, just like that, the level 2 definitely will be reached in that bottom side, but we get a quick vision game of top side. Xiaoxu's taken the brunt of trades, as looks like that matchup is going to be something we talk about as well. Nice poke damage coming through from JinJiao yet again.
But that's obviously not going to be contested at this point, because Rare Adam, they've lost control of the wave. They have to hit the minions while LGD's bot lane are hitting them. So Southwind is managing to move up once again, but just having to clear turrets right now. Hold JinJiao back as much as they can.
And so let's quickly look at jungle pathing here, because I think a lot of these lanes, we are seeing brutalization going on from the Donga. Is going to be impacted by Meteor, by Leyan here on the Vi, on the Zac. They're pathed towards the top side right now, and Nymeara, we didn't get to talk about it too much, but top side, pretty important matchup as well if they start snowballing ahead.
And we can see that Cube controlling the wave very early on, but of course this matchup can be so tight as the game goes on. Good riposte onto a counter strike.
Nice.
Point in that mid lane. Already talked about that immobile target of the Syndra being picked on as the game goes on, starting things early as Meteor.
Great timing for the engage there from Meteor. After Scatter the Weak was down, he's able to get the flash out of Strive early on, but Leyan uses that timing wisely and picks up a stolen blue buff here from his jungle. So Meteor not going to have his hands on that one, and Leyan going to get topside scuttle as well. The control vision aligned with his topside river, so
this,
bit of a net advantage.
Yeah, but this kind of duel between these junglers has been really cool to see throughout this series. First game was very handily on the side of Meteor, on the Skarner, unexpected pick coming through. And Leyan really struggling to impact the game on the Diego. Second game, actually it was the Sejuani that really ended up being the difference maker, even though the Nidalee landed a lot of spears. Third game, Meteor. Finding a gank at level 3 on Zac, pretty difficult. Typically you'd find it at level 4 when your elastic slingshot starts to get a little bit longer range. Manages to find something a bit earlier. But Leyan, not caught sleeping, managing to take something back in return. Third game, both junglers making an impact already.
And already into the top side, right? You mentioned level 4 is going to be the big one, but Meteor's still going in at 3. Vault Breaker in first, and there's a slingshot, but it's flashed away, but stretchy arms come through, but Meteor's left on his lonesome, and the burst damage is too much to deal with. Xiaoxu scared of going back in, as it's cell division, but no one to save his life. First blood over to RA with immense damage.
That is such an important kill for the side of Rare Adam, because this Zac, if they manage to just chain gank lanes, go back towards that mid lane, force Syndra to play defensively, could change the tone of this early game completely. They take away the passive, they stop Meteor from taking any of his camps or anything like that, just set him behind a little bit. That's so important to get at that point. Really, it starts with winning that mind game on the riposte. Xiaoxu really having to disengage a little earlier than they would have wanted. As soon as that riposte is down, you're sat at a couple of hundred HP. You can't fight that anymore.
And you got his flash too. Leyan may have burned his, but you got Meteor's flash, and you got Cell Division, which has a very long cooldown, folks. So that passive not being up, that explosive power of Zac, and I guess the brute force nature of the champion comes down just a little bit. So props here to RA. Again, hitting that top side. We saw in game number 2 there, Nymeara. That top side was their priority. RA have consistently played towards Cube, and this game is no different.
And the great thing about killing a Zac early game, well, I mean killing any ganking jungler early game, is that you kill them, you take them and put them a step behind the game, it stops them from doing anything to all of your lanes. It kind of like helps out the entire map for the jungle at that point. It means that this bot lane of the Zeri and the Heimerdinger, they can play with a little bit more safety. Maybe Strive can also play a little bit more safely too, which is very important because he just had his flash blown. This affects the entire map, so LGD left wondering now, okay, you know, what are we going to do with, what are we going to do now? Our jungler is going to have less impact on this game, having that flash and passive.
And so it looks like the bottom lane of LGD trying to create an advantage for him. You could see before Leyan was pathing around, playing with fate a bit, considering that Sssum and Southwind were quite low on both health and mana. LGD setting themselves up strong with a Heimerdinger, but in the end, nothing happens, and they just get the shove in with a quick max on Southwind. Meteor disappearing, but I want to point out in this early game, Nymeara, there's been really good tracking of vision. Have you noticed that Meteor has been walking over wards for the past 6 minutes straight, with RA doing a really good job of tracking this Zac?
And I think that really is one of the prerequisites to dealing with a hype ganking jungler like the Zac. Of course, it didn't stop them from losing that flash in the mid lane. Was traded by Leyan taking that buff. But yeah, again, just keeping tabs on the most volatile part of the early game from LGD. Playmaker, Meteor, who now has to find another way into this game. And once again, another set of pings down to that Zac track again. Yeah, Leyan very happy to start up this dragon.
Good map read there, sir. You can see, as you said, the ping's going down, knowing that Cube was one to place the ward. And at the very least, knowing that Meteor was there, or at least spotting him out himself, is a big deal, meaning Leyan can just continue fighting away at this dragon. It'll be the first dragon of the game picked up for Rare Adam, and a beautifully started early game with a 1,000 goal lead. And note as well, just to get a photon grenade from JinJiao, who's just doing annoying damage. Note as well that Leyan's actually up by about 16 CS there, Nymeara, so a really big start, considering he has a kill on top of that as well.
And let's juxtapose this with the first two games, where the Skarner got stupidly far ahead into the Syndra, and then in the second game with the Sejuani very far ahead into the Poke Varus. If these tank junglers get ahead, you don't get to remove them. They get to play very, very aggressively, and they get to play around their engage with a lot more impunity. That's not going to be the case this time. Zac is behind the state of the game, isn't going to be dealing with extra HP, extra levels, extra ability to survive the initial engage. Someone like a Zac needs to play very feast or famine. He's looking a little bit starving for now.
And he's level 5 as well, so he doesn't have that let's bouncity bounce. Meteor, without the ultimate, without cell division here, being challenged by RA, but they're backed away for now. Looks like Leyan goes to his own jungle and doesn't want to challenge because LPC has made them move up as well. So even on vision here, looks like LGD should be able to brute force this Herald while they try and leave Sssum to get something in the bottom lane.
Get this the Scuttle to get Meteor up to level 6, so gets a camp in that as well, and has most of his camps to clear through on his next pass through the jungle as well. So hopefully Meteor able to reach a point of power after that point. Losing the mind game in the boss battle.
Yep. And you know what? Ghost has to be popped because he's scared. Even Grand Challenge comes through as Leyan spotted on the ward, but Haichao, a real bro. Even with low mana bar, he comes up to Realm Warp to help save the day as JinJiao forces the flash, and LPC goes over the wall with a flash lightning crash down.
Hits the
blast
blast
goes taken back. Strive! Oh, that ain't staying alive. That's the opposite.
Oh, LPC with the piercing shots. Hits the Syndra and hits the blast cone. Forces his enemy back into him. And Strive is sat there going, huh, finally got my flash back. Gets to take it away, gets his life taken away as well. LGD's bot lane managing to get something rolling for their team.
How nice was that? Strive going down, and I think LPC so far this series has been a real standout. Someone we've seen in the LPL in the last split, but really we didn't talk much about him. Been some good AD carry games, considering Sssum was the star AD carry in the series so far. So we'll have to see what LPC can do now, picking up that near solo kill as Leyan comes into the bottom lane, trying to make something happen, but LGD are paying respect. Let's watch this replay again, Nymeara, because this was aggressive.
Yeah, Strive misses the scout of the week. After that point, you have no way to defend yourself. You don't have 100-0 threat. LPC, very content to go towards the aggressive play. And that piercing shot. Hits both targets he wants. Strive, no counterplay to that one. LPC, really entering this year with a strong set of form. And in the LPL as a whole, we have a lot of teams which are going through changes, players going through changes as well. What better time than to try and put your name onto the radar as those changes start to grow into something more?
How crazy it is as well. Like, you know, LPC is someone who, in the past, we're looking at a bottom 3 AD carry, but here in this series, it does feel like he's quite solid. So someone will be keeping an eye on.
Considering that we were talking about Sssum as well, coming into the series as, you know,
Yeah.
the ex-LGD AD carry, the maybe player to watch on Rare Atom. Of course, Cube's had a great series as well, but we mentioned Ssum's name fairly heavily there. LPC really showing us that he deserves to have attention paid to him as well.
As right now, Cube may be the person who's going to get a bit more attention, but this time from Meteor, who's got the Cell Division up and available. Cube with the Leap Strike out of there. Pops the ultimate, but the Master at Arms not getting too much as the Grand Challenge comes through to threaten. The rest of jungle is here, as Leyan moves up to the top side as well, but Meteor's unable to get anything done.
Yeah, Meteor managed to get that flash very early on out of mid. He's not here to defend top as he leaves.
And there's no Grand Challenge. What great timing here coming through. And RA give yet another kill to Cube.
Cube on the Jax, 1-0-1, 45 CS up, or something close to that, 40. Really set up for success again. There's one thing which we kind of called out before the third game draft is, yeah, Cube's been doing very well when played around. Want to see that more. Seems like that has been well and truly received and understood by Rare Atom, as this Jax getting to be very dangerous once again.
Yeah, look again, Cube is set up for success. That's a 40 CS lead up in the top side, by the way. Will only be 30 once that wave's caught up, but still massive as LPC ultis in, forces the flash, aggressive as anything. I guess that's what you'd expect of an ex-JD G3 carry. A beautiful play as Q is not going to reach in time, and Sssum now down a summoner off a very trepidatious play.
That's the kind of player I love being in the LPL for, because you see these players just go, all right, I'll have it. Just go for that damage calculation, go for lethal. LPC really feeling himself in this series. Once again, just continuing to build on the first 2 games, which have been pretty standout from the AD carry player.
And again, I want to reiterate as Herald looks to charge towards mid lane. LPC has only been filling in roles here on JDG. Over Loken, over Hopu, went to the World Semi-Finals. He's a player who's played in the LVL under Joy Dream, so he's always been under JDG. This is his first team where he's in a starting position. And right now, one of the top 80 carries in the LDL is really proving himself. Again, the aggression is what we talked about, but we have to note that the Herald in the mid lane there, very important to mention the gold that was given over to Haichao about 30 seconds before the turret plating dissipated.
Yeah, but as much as this gold given over the Ryze, once again, we're seeing that the Ryzes in this series have struggled to make the huge plays on side lanes. It really is just later on when you're looking into the objectives where it started to really see that realm walk become more of a factor. But the gold into the Ryze, maybe that will help Haichao get into the side lanes, get around that map, use that realm warp in more impactful ways.
Nymeara, we're getting a picture-in-picture because Cube looks like he's threatening topside again while the Dragon's going on for RA to secure. Second Dragon here for the Rare Atom as LGD actually getting forced on double flash. Haichao's been found out as Strive gets scattered the week, and this Ryze is not moving anytime soon. All the way deep into the red side jungle, and Rare Atom get more than just a prize.
That was a bit of a long haul flight. Goes right the way across the side of the jungle there, but Leyan manages to find his man, finds Haichao, takes down that Ryze who is trying to look for one of those finds. So he's saying, okay, got a little bit more gold, maybe could use that realm warp, find something good. Finds only his own doom.
And I have to mention that that play was like a turbo gold advantage. Not only did they get the second dragon, and that stack is very real towards our first Chemtech dragon, as far as I know, by the way, Chemtech Soul. RA got themselves a top side turret thanks to
Look how
Cube.
far that blast plant goes. It's like someone
ridiculous.
has gone to all of the plants on the rift and like watered them with like an energy drink. Like these things are completely out of whack. There are so many plants everywhere, and particularly when you have, say, someone like the Vi in particular, maybe someone like the Jax too.
Yeah.
The fact that you have to ward like so much further into the enemy jungle to track where these plants are, to see who's going to fly a full screen over the wall at you, it's actually really disconcerting to play against. I love it personally. I really like what they've done with the plants. It's much better than the old version of the Chemtech, which was not very fun to play against when you lost vision. This one feels a lot more interactive.
I agree, especially right with the Jax, with someone like a Vi as well. Blast going into ultimate. That's a long haul flight. It's like flying Sydney to London, honestly. 20 hours and an absolute pain, but if you like flying, it's good for you.
Twice in my life, and I still remember them very vividly because how long. Normally like stop off somewhere.
In like Dubai or Abu Dhabi, yeah, somewhere.
I like the airport
Oh, Singapore. Yeah, very nice airport. I'll be honest. Either way, you know, I might sleep a little bit on flights, but man, screw the 14-hour part. That just sucks.
Yeah. Used to load up with my old Game Boy, like play game through that.
Yeah.
Doing a short hop flight this time. Has the ult though. Maybe looking for LPC.
Yeah, this time it's only going to be sitting to Melbourne as Vault Breaker not going through for the time being. Leyan backs away, but the turret's still down. And just noticed from these last couple of minutes of play, it looks pretty passive. It looks like LGD have been trying to do something, but gold is going completely awry, Nymeara. It's almost a 5k gold lead. At 16 minutes in the game, we have almost a 2-item Varus, which lethality Varus is hitting pretty hard at the moment, by the way. And this Jax is set up now with 2 items, a 40 CS lead, and Cube maintaining a full item lead at 16 minutes in the game.
And this is the kind of comp from Rare Adam, which we didn't quite see work in Game 1 because of the power of Meteor on that Skarner. And now you have a Zac who has been shut out of the game very comprehensively. Rare Adam's comp, which of course they tried to bring to bear in Game 1, is much more successful. The side lanes are opened up in their favor. The Syndra, the Varus, able to get farm in the places that they want. As you were saying, that Varus heading towards that 2-item spike too. Very, very important. And because the tanks aren't really online, and let's be honest, they're probably not going to be online at this point, the way that they fall behind the curve of the game, that damage is going to matter and stick.
So let me ask you then, what do LGD do to pace out this game? Because it does look like, you know, with Ryze, Fiora, with Zeri, there is a very big bonus to LGD slowing the game pace down, right?
I think they can accelerate it, but it has to be on their terms. I think they have to play around the vision. You see that there is a pink ward on that screen there. There is a pink ward on the top side of mid. There is a pink ward in river as well, down towards this bot side of the map. Rare Adam, they haven't got any enemy wards in their own jungle. LGD, they need to get that information to then start leveraging that off and try and get a Zac jump onto someone out of position, onto someone like this Varus, the Karma, the Syndra.
You're right. Right now it looks pretty hard with red side being fully controlled, and even the Herald placed into the bottom inner. Strive looking for some ranged autos to just finish his turret off and getting close, but as he comes over, Leyan now there onto Haichao, who once again remembers that long journey, but it won't be taken by Leyan a second time around. But still, inner turret goes down, more gold over to RA. The lead maintained at that 6,000 point. And we're getting towards a Chemtech Dragon in 30 seconds, Nymeara, and look, RA looks pretty set to go to secure third.
And I think the real difference between the first game, which went so disastrously wrong for Rare Adam, and so well for LGD, and this game here, is that Rare Adam, they're kind of being rewarded for their defensive play in this game, because they actually have managed to stay a little bit further ahead. They're playing around the vision they have, and they have the vision to be able to do that with too. It's a very similar kind of game to that first one in regards to the way that the compositions could potentially interact. You can see how much it flips around should some key things in the early game go wrong. So LGD trying to find their own ingress division into the jungle to find something to play around, but it's happening so late into the game where they're already falling so far behind that it's just not really where they want to be in this game. They want to be so much further ahead around their engaging plays.
They lose that third dragon for it, at least getting some gold back. Objective bounties coming up as well, and able to get some gold back into their pockets. But you're right, it just feels like, you know, the clock is going pretty damn fast for them right now. We're pre-20 minutes. We've got a Soul coming up in 4.5 minutes time. So for RA, they're going to be forcing LGD into that one spot.
Yeah, and I think this is the point where you're starting to look at potential desperation plays coming through, so we might have to prepare for some shenanigans. That's the kind of mindset which I'm starting to predict at this point, because again, LGD, they don't have their ideal scenario, they have far from it at this point. They got a little bit of vision, which is immediately swept out. Rare Adam not being caught sleeping on that one, and Rare Adam, there is no obligation for them to do anything really stupid at this point. They can sit, they can wait for that timer, they can play safely around their lanes. There is nothing really forcing them to make mistakes which LGD would capitalize off of.
And it's going to be nice watching Sssum especially wade in. He's got the Prowler's Claw now, and you know, the stats from that item are just insane, where LGD are going to be half health, or 3/4 at least.
That's true, actually. I kind of forgot about that item. I remember when Poke Varus started to first come back into the meta after the Mythic rework stuff. That pretty crazy item, just a stat stick of power. Of course, it's shifted over to stuff like Duskblade a little bit later, but we're back to this one after all this time. Huge amounts of lethality built up, and when you only have really one tank on the other side, and Ryze, who kind of does half a job of that with a lot of Aegis HP, but no armor, of course, to build up with that at this point either. No Wars and Work Treads. Not building towards anything like a Seeker's Arm Guard. No real need to in this game, or really doesn't have the gold to do so. This Varus is going to work. Oh wait, Cube, don't do it for a red buff again.
I mean, Cube is probably going to be able to take on everyone at the moment. However, there's a lot that's been burned. Flash away from Cube while Grand Challenge was there with Ghost, with Flash from Haichao, with JinJiao's ulti, with LPC's ulti, with Haichao Realm Warping, all for Cube. Rare Atom now in a great position where they're going to use TP, but it's on a turret! I think they wanted Meteor's Bloodlet, but they clicked on JinJiao's turret instead.
You know it's going pretty bad when Cube actually wins the red buff fight, gets to take out a couple of ultimates, get away with his life, and then LGD, they just find themselves scrambling for a place somewhere, anywhere. They lose their jungler, they're going to lose the Baron, and Rare Atom, as we were saying, there was nothing forcing them to make these big mistakes. They've managed to get themselves into position now to get that big objective. It's going to then see them into potential Chemtech Soul as well. Rare Atom in a commanding position in this best of 3.
Well, we'll watch the top side fight again, I guess, because Cube didn't die in the end after all that. And yep, there it is. Blame JinJiao. No, I don't think you do, but Haichao, I guess, misclicked by a millimeter or something.
Sometimes it is a game of millimeters, game of inches, and they have gone against LGD in this game. And actually, one thing which I was faintly amused by was that Cube actually returned back to the red buff after nearly dying for it in that last play. Goes, huh, that's cool. Guess I'll find myself that buff, and finally wins himself his great battle against his nemesis in the jungle. That one. Cube is doing a fine job of exerting his pressure in the map in this third game.
Got some highlights on the side for you there as well. He's 3,000 gold up over Xiaoxu. No big surprise, but I think one that is that Leyan is 100% kill participation. We might be in a 5-kill game at 23 minutes, folks, but still, you can see that Leyan in Game 2 and Game 3 has really found his stride. As that ultimate, really nice from Sssum, just zones off Haichao, while Leyan and the rest of the boys just run into that inner turret on the top side. 8k gold lead, that's what you're looking at right now. The Baron buff doing work already with the 2,500 gold play. And Xiaoxu's trying to get something on the other side of the map, but I think his base is just going to be broken by the time he gets home.
Yeah, but this Fiora is so far behind. 0-1, huge amounts of CS down. The devil's advocate argument is, what good would they do if they were here at the base right now? Because they don't have the items to impact these team fights. You don't have a ghost down either. At least they get themselves an objective bounty. It feels awful, but what else can you do?
I mean, you're right. And look, they didn't lose inhibitor turret either. So very good point there, Nymeara, that, you know, you do get the Ravenous Hydra off that.
I have them very occasionally. I save them for the big moments.
No. It's been the whole cast so far, brother. It's a pleasure to have you in what can only be considered, I guess, a penultimate moment. Sorry, an ultimate moment, I should say. We have three series left, or 2 series left. So we're essentially building up to what can only be considered a banger day with NIP and Ultra Prime coming up later. But I feel like RA have shown us that they are still a team worth considering. Oh my lord! That's a good splinter.
Yeah, that one's more of a wooden stake through the heart. Q's everywhere. Meteor, for someone who started the series so well, double dipped onto the tank initiators for this third game, but has been well and truly contained, well and truly shut down. And Xiaoxu, you're not alone on the side lane anymore, mate. You are on the ground with your jungler.
He's about to be Flame Horizon by Cube. This was top diff from Game 2 onwards, let's be real. Jungle diff from Game 2 onwards, I think, meant a bigger deal, but this time around, Cube has just shown up himself. This Jax is something that needs to be respected by future teams going up against RA, because it's really switched on this team, and now with double inhibitors down, with almost 10k gold lead at 25 minutes in the game.
Soul waiting for them.
Oh, Chem Tank, and that's just going to be a joy. Oh, yep, okay.
Yeah, like, put it this way, the game has not ended yet, but that's the fight which probably ends this game. You've lost 2 inhibitors to try and get any semblance of map control. We talked about how important that is in regards to LGD, looking for opportunistic picks. If RA are just going to sit there, siege down a final inhibitor from one side, LGD have one desperation play realistically left. And I don't think it's going to go pretty for them.
Oh no. Just gonna replay this. And yeah, cool.
There isn't really much to say about there, is it really? It's literally just like, this Fiora was shut down early, they've had to be relegated to a side lane with no one in it because they can't fight anyone in the side lanes, and the minute someone turns up into their lane, they just can't stand the fight. It's a very difficult situation.
3 out of Jack's Meteor goes over, and look, Leyan the other side. Both junglers decided to launch and yeet into the enemy team as Leyan is in fear of dying now as LPC tried his hardest. Props to this Zeri, who's had some pretty clutch moments in the game, but they're just too far behind. Haichao narrowly avoiding a Sssum, but Meteor also launching out knows that RA now with Chemtech Soul, now with a top side push, are ready to end this one. And all it takes is 1 or 2 more kills for RA to lock in their first series win of the LPL this year.
And it is a 1-for-1 jungler for AD carry, but that's your AD carry. They're not on the table, they're not here for the wave clear, not here for the damage. And Leyan, I think they're more than happy to take that trade as long as his team can stack up and take this final inhibitor. Maybe Meteor can jump.
Yep, that's a good jump. Okay, onto Cube though, takes no damage, and Scatter the Weak again.
It's not good
Strive! Yeah, beautiful stuff. Cube now running into the base on top of Xiaoxu with the Spear of Shojin. Cooldown reduction galore as Southwind takes up the turret. It gets a little bit messy, but Strive still kills the green pile of goo. 0 and 4 for Meteor. And right now, RA playing with their food, it seems, here, as they run into the last inhibitor turret.
Strive just walking forwards with the Syndra, looking for the long-range skill shots. And LPC, good series though they might have had, it is not enough to save his team in this third game. Taken down for that last base push, and RA feel no need to reset. They're going to look for the end.
Okay, well, even on low health bars, you got to respect the energy here from RA. Maybe thinking it's a bit too much of a risk, because Baron comes up in 10 seconds, and they're not going to risk it.
That's like one of those situations where I feel like if one stun lands, or if Leyan wants to go over the wall, then you look for the end.
Never mind, it's a ruse. It's an absolute ruse, you're right. One stun landing, that's all it took. Cube now running forward yet again. That was a pick this time onto LPC, and now maybe they go towards Baron.
They had a bone to pick with that AD carry. For someone who's given me so much trouble throughout this series, they, nope, not this time. Take him down 2 times in a row, send him from 1-0 to 1 and 2. No Zeri alive for this contest. There is going to be no contest. LGD just have to wait to hear that Baron death cry across the rift. And Raren will finally take their ill-gotten gains away from that base, go back, spend their money, and look for that final game-ending push.
Might be under 30 minutes. It's going to be a pretty big moment here for RA, considering that this team started off the series with 0 kills. There were no kills for this team in game number 1. It was pretty one-sided for LGD. I was tooting the horn of LGD, by the way, massively. And then all of a sudden, RA just switched on here in the series as they run down the mid lane of Nymeara. It is coming to a close. It might not be the old Chemtech Soul, but even if they do a little bit of damage, there's going to be a lot more damage reduction and a lot more damage followed up as Strive Scout of the Week flash ulti by JinJiao.
He's gone, deceased, gone to beat its makers, his team soon to follow.
Oh no, Cube jumping in as well, the GA comes through, the last stand for LGD. Might be Dude sitting on the floor at this point, low health bars, do they care? Not really, Vault Breaker there, LPC left to survive, Strive surviving, but for RA, a redemption here in this series, their first series win of the LPL against LGD, and it's a statement here in the 2-1.
And in the manner they won it as well, gotta talk about the mental fortitude. That first game was not pretty. It was a very difficult game to play. They basically didn't get to play, honestly. They had 0 kills. They had to play grouped up, scared, whenever they were moving around the map. And the second game, honestly, they made a lot of mistakes too. And they had to extend that game after contesting for red buffs, dying for it, losing Baron steals. To come back from those first 2 games, and even though they won that second game, go into the third one and pull out a performance like that, I think you do have to mention the mental aspect of that kind of victory.
Yeah. It's good stability in that regard, right? Coming out of the members you'd expect it to come out of. I think especially Cube and Leyan, the longest standing members now of Rare Atom. This was such a good statement for them to start off the season as I think Leyan has still got his mouse plugged in and it just walked away, almost creating a hazard for the rest of the players. But still, again, props to a jungler I think has been top 3 in the league over a couple of splits in the past 3 years. and is someone who continuously shows up big within series. That was definitely one of those moments there, and especially game 2, where I think he came in clutch on the Sejuani.
Yeah, and even in that last one as well, one of the key moments in that game was the counter gank topside after Zach flies in, and then actually is trying to fly in to save his top laner. I guess it wasn't really counter gank, but just that fracas topside where you had that 2v2, it shut down that Zach being able to do anything. They died very early on, they lost their passive, they lost their flash, and suddenly Meteor, who had been a very defining player for his own team in the first couple of games, didn't have that nearly the same level of impact due to Leyan's influence.
And it's crazy because, again, it was such a strong start and Meteor looked pretty switched on. We saw a nice jungle pull come out of him as well, like quite a lot of flexibility, I'd say. And so looking forward for LGD, from what we saw in that first game, we know that LGD can actually perform like a solid unit, but Nymeara, I'm not sure if you would have put it down to draft or put it down to adaptation within the game, where this team kind of fell apart once RA were coasting. Whenever there was a composition that was outscaling or just coasting, they didn't know how to quicken the pace.
It's one of two things, right? Either you change the draft, you combat that scaling, you go into a late game scenario and you end up having more tools to fight with, or you play your early game much more clinically, and that's really what I guess both teams were missing in some of those games, particularly LGD and that third game. And of course the second one with the Nidalee Renekton too, they didn't quite manage to make that work out, but really looking at how that early game was meant to play out, I think you have to move away from it if you're not confident you can pull off that kind of execution.
I agree as well. Sorry for the sneezes.
I think you're allowed a couple.
Getting allergic to the room, apparently. Yeah, not much to speak of the numbers. And I think as well, like, we're only at the start of the split, so I don't blame a team for kind of learning, you know, how their games are going, holding back a third seed. But, you know, we saw LGD run a similar composition in the first game. It was clean. They were really good at coasting by and kind of waiting for their moment to strike. This game was quite different, and it was like, okay, things are running away from them. Top got gapped very hard. I think Cube was the biggest thing where they're like, oh, hang on a minute. We can't just sit back and let this game go on because Xiaoxu is kind of irrelevant and Cube is just taking over with like a 2-item lead by the end.
Honestly, even in that first game, we called back to it multiple times through the series. Even in the 0-kill game, you felt like Cube was having an amount of impact. And when you consider how far behind his team was in that game, that's still worth mentioning. Cube, I think overall,